In a grand, towering castle nestled in the heart of the kingdom, a beautiful queen would often stand before her enchanted mirror. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. The magic mirror on the wall was her closest confidant. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" she would ask, her voice smooth and alluring, as she awaited the answer that filled her with pride. In a faraway kingdom, a gentle queen gave birth to a daughter named Snow White. Snow White's skin was as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as dark as ebony. The kingdom rejoiced at her arrival. The queen smiled brightly, holding her daughter close, while the kingdom showered the baby princess with love and gifts. As Snow White grew, the queen's vanity deepened. She would stand before her mirror, growing more and more resentful of her stepdaughter's beauty. One day, the mirror answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White is fairest of them all." Enraged by the mirror's words, the queen ordered her huntsman to take Snow White into the deep, dark forest and never return her. Alone and lost in the vast, dark forest, Snow White wandered, her heart racing in fear. The towering trees seemed to whisper secrets to each other as the wind rustled through their leaves. Branches twisted into eerie shapes, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Just when she thought she couldn't go any further, she stumbled upon a tiny, charming cottage. The windows glowed warmly, and Snow White, cold and tired, hesitated for only a moment before knocking. Inside the cozy cottage, everything was small and neat. 7 beds lined the walls, each with a little pillow and blanket. The kitchen was cluttered with wooden spoons, bowls, and half-peeled vegetables. It was a perfect home for 7 dwarfs who worked tirelessly in the mountains, mining for gems and precious stones. They returned to find Snow White asleep in their home. When she awoke, they welcomed her with open arms. The dwarfs, kind and protective, warned Snow White of the dangers that lurked outside their cottage. "The queen will stop at nothing to harm you," they told her. Snow White promised to be careful. Her heart was lightened by the love and care of the dwarfs, who treated her like their own sister. She helped them with their daily chores, and they in turn shared tales of their mountain adventures. Back in the castle, the queen's jealousy burned brighter each day. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" she asked again. This time, the mirror replied, "Snow White, with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony, is still the fairest." Enraged, the queen disguised herself as an old, haggard peddler and set out to find Snow White. She crafted a poisoned apple, the perfect tool for her wicked plan. The queen arrived at the cottage and knocked on the door. Snow White, though cautious, was charmed by the old woman's gentle voice and accepted the poisoned apple. The moment Snow White took a bite, her eyes fluttered closed, and she fell into an eternal sleep. The dwarfs arrived home to find her lifeless. A single apple core lay by her side. They grieved deeply, but they did not give up hope. The dwarfs kept a vigil over Snow White's body, unable to let her go. Each day they looked for a cure, but nothing worked. They placed her in a crystal coffin, which shimmered in the moonlight, hoping one day she would awaken. Snow White's beauty remained untouched, her skin still white as snow, her lips still red as blood, and her hair black as ebony. One fateful day, a prince who had heard tales of Snow White's beauty arrived at the cottage. He gazed upon her and fell instantly in love. The dwarfs, though sad to part with her, allowed him to kiss her. When the prince leaned down and kissed Snow White, something magical happened. A glow filled the room, and Snow White's eyes fluttered open. The poison was broken, and she awoke as if from a deep, enchanted slumber. The kingdom rejoiced at Snow White's revival, and the prince and Snow White were married in a grand, golden hall. The flowers bloomed in a riot of colors, and the air was filled with sweet melodies from flutes and harps. Snow White wore a gown of white silk that sparkled under the light, while the prince stood beside her in his royal attire. The dwarfs danced joyously at the wedding, thrilled that Snow White had found her happiness. As Snow White's wedding day neared, the wicked queen once again stood before her mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" she asked. The mirror answered, "You are fair, my queen, but Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen, in her rage, stormed into the kingdom, only to be met by the prince's soldiers. Her wickedness finally caught up to her, and she was banished from the land, never to return. Snow White, now happily married to the prince, ruled the kingdom. The castle that had once felt so lonely now echoed with laughter and joy. The sunset over the kingdom was always brilliantly beautiful, casting golden light over the vine-covered walls. Snow White's reign was peaceful, and she was loved by all. Snow White and the prince often walked together through the enchanted forest, where the trees seemed to whisper ancient secrets, and the flowers bloomed in colors that no one had ever seen before. The air was thick with magic. The sound of birdsong carried through the air. It was a place of peace and serenity, where Snow White felt connected to the earth beneath her feet. Snow White and the prince's life together was filled with happiness. The castle's halls were alive with the sounds of music and laughter, and the gardens outside were always filled with fresh blooms. Every day was a new adventure, and Snow White's heart was filled with gratitude for the love she had found. The dwarfs, ever faithful, visited the castle often, bringing gifts of gems and flowers to Snow White. Their laughter filled the halls, and they were always treated like family. The prince, kind-hearted and generous, welcomed them with open arms. Snow White shared her happiness with her beloved dwarfs. The love Snow White shared with the prince was the true magic of the land. It was a love that was pure, strong, and eternal, capable of overcoming any obstacle. Snow White's kindness spread throughout the kingdom, and her heart, full of warmth, made everyone around her feel safe and loved. Under Snow White's rule, the kingdom flourished. Crops grew abundant, the rivers sparkled, and the skies were always clear. People from distant lands came to see the beauty of Snow White's reign and the peace she brought. The castle became a symbol of hope, and Snow White's name was known far and wide. Snow White's kingdom became a place where dreams came true. Love triumphed over evil. The magic of that time never faded, and Snow White's story was told for generations to come, reminding everyone of the power of goodness, love, and courage. Snow White, the prince, and the dwarfs lived happily ever after. Their story became a legend, passed down through the ages, a tale of how beauty and kindness, when paired with love, could conquer the darkest of evils. The kingdom lived in peace, and the light of Snow White's heart guided all who entered her realm.